The Galactic Academy of Sciences hummed with quiet efficiency as students from dozens of worlds attended their xenobiology lecture. Professor Kethvar, a tall Zelthonian with crystalline skin that refracted the classroom's soft light, gestured toward the holographic display showing various planetary ecosystems. Today, we examine death classification systems for inhabited worlds, the professor announced, his voice carrying the melodic undertones typical of his species. Class A worlds present minimal threats to sentient life. Class B worlds contain moderate environmental challenges. Class C worlds... Maya Chen sat in the third row, her dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail, wearing the standard academy uniform that looked identical to everyone else's, yet somehow fit differently on her compact frame. She took notes on her data pad while other students, blue-skinned Altarians, insectoid Chithari, gaseous nebulans contained in environmental suits, listened with varying degrees of attention. Class C worlds, Professor Kethvar continued, present severe threats requiring specialized adaptation. Only 3 known Class C worlds currently support advanced civilization. The holographic display shifted, showing barren landscapes swept by acidic storms, frozen wastelands where temperatures dropped below what most species considered survivable, and volcanic hellscapes where the very air could dissolve unprotected tissue. Zekthar, a draconian student whose scales gleamed purple-black under the classroom lights, raised one clawed hand. His species came from a Class B world where gravity ran twice galactic standard and predators the size of small starships roamed crystalline forests. Professor, what about the rumors of a Class D world? Some students whisper about classification levels beyond C. The professor's crystalline features shifted, the equivalent of a frown among his people. Class D classification remains theoretical. No world qualifying for such designation has produced spacefaring civilization. The environmental pressures would be... He paused, searching for words. Unsurvivable for any known form of complex life. Maya continued taking notes, seemingly unaware of the subtle glances directed her way. Most students had heard whispers about the human exchange student, but few knew the true classification of her homeworld. The Academy's official records listed Earth as Class B, a diplomatic fiction that prevented panic among the student body. The theoretical Class D world, Professor Kethvar resumed his lecture, would combine multiple extinction-level threat categories: extreme weather patterns, predatory ecosystems, atmospheric instability, seismic activity, radiation exposure, gravitational irregularities, and potentially active warfare among dominant species. Such conditions would forge any surviving intelligence into... Again he paused. Well, into something unprecedented. Behind Maya, Torgal shifted in his seat. The massive hegemony warrior came from a species bred for combat, standing over 2 meters tall with natural armor plating and redundant organ systems. His people had conquered 17 star systems through pure military might. Yet something about the small human female made his predatory instincts whisper warnings he couldn't quite understand. Perhaps, Torgal rumbled, his voice carrying across the classroom, we should examine a practical example. If such a theoretical Class D species existed, how would we recognize their adaptations? Professor Kethvar's crystalline skin flickered, a sign of nervousness. That would be purely speculative, Torgal. We should focus on documented classifications rather than theoretical. I insist, Torgal interrupted, standing to his full imposing height. His hand rested casually on the ceremonial blade at his side, a weapon that had tasted blood in actual combat. Academic curiosity demands thorough examination. The classroom fell silent. Other species might engage in philosophical debates. But hegemon warriors settled disputes through strength. When Torgal made demands, Weaker beings typically acquiesced. His reputation preceded him, 3 duels won, 2 small colonies pacified, and countless sparring victories against Academy security personnel. Maya looked up from her notes for the first time, her brown eyes meeting Torgul's predatory gaze without flinching. She appeared entirely calm, as if a 2-meter killing machine hadn't just issued what everyone recognized as a veiled threat. "You're right," she said quietly, her voice carrying clearly through the silent classroom. "Theoretical examination helps understand practical applications." Professor Kethavar's crystalline form began flickering more rapidly, fear response among his people. "Perhaps we should move on to safer topics. The cellular adaptation mechanisms of Class A species offer fascinating—" "No!" Torgul cut him off, his eyes never leaving Maya. "I think our human classmate can provide unique insights. After all, she represents the newest species admitted to Academy programs." His smile revealed teeth designed for tearing flesh. "Surely someone from a Class B world can handle academic discussion." Maya set down her datapad and turned in her seat to face Torgul directly. The movement appeared casual, but several students later swore they caught something predatory in her posture, like a sleeping cat suddenly aware of nearby mice. "Class D adaptations," Maya said conversationally, "would likely include enhanced threat assessment, improved reaction times, and—" She paused, her smile matching Torgul's in its complete lack of warmth. "Tolerance for violence." The hegemon warrior's hand tightened on his blade hilt. Around the classroom, other students began edging away from the confrontation zone. Chithari buzzed nervously. Altarian's skin tone shifted toward defensive blue. The Nebulan in the environmental suit made soft hissing sounds that translated roughly to prayers in their gaseous language. "Interesting theory," Torgul said, drawing his blade with deliberate slowness. The metal sang as it cleared the sheath, a sound that made every non-predator species in the room trigger fight-or-flight responses. "Perhaps we should test these theoretical adaptations." Professor Kethavar's crystalline structure went completely clear, the equivalent of fainting among his people. "Security! We need security to the xenobiology lecture hall immediately!" Maya remained seated, watching Torgul with the same expression she'd worn while taking notes. Her hands rested loosely in her lap. Her breathing stayed steady. She looked, for all practical purposes, like someone waiting for a delayed transport rather than facing an armed warrior from a species known for solving problems through controlled violence. "Torgul," she said peacefully, "you're holding your blade wrong for an academic demonstration." The hegemon's predatory smile faltered slightly. In 3 years at the Academy, no one had ever criticized his weapon handling. His people were born warriors. Their children learned blade work before they learned to speak properly. "Am I?" he asked, genuine curiosity mixing with threat assessment. Maya nodded toward his grip. "You're holding it for killing. See how your fingers wrap for maximum force transmission? That positioning sacrifices precision for power. In an educational environment, you'd want to demonstrate technique rather than raw effectiveness." She stood up slowly, her movements fluid and controlled. At barely 1.6 meters, she looked absurdly small compared to the armored warrior, but somehow the size difference seemed less relevant than it had moments earlier. "For instance," Maya continued, stepping closer to Torgul, while every survival instinct in the room screamed warnings, "if you shifted your grip like this." She reached toward his weapon hand with apparent complete trust that he wouldn't simply decapitate her. The contact lasted perhaps 2 seconds. Maya's fingers briefly adjusted Torgul's grip on the blade handle, her touch light and completely non-threatening. Then she stepped back, hands once again at her sides. "There," she said cheerfully. "Much better for educational purposes. You can demonstrate precision cuts without accidentally damaging Academy property." Torgul stared at his altered grip. The adjustment was subtle but significant. He could feel the difference in balance and control. More importantly, he realized with growing amazement the human had approached an armed hegemon warrior without the slightest sign of fear. The classroom held its collective breath. Several students had activated personal emergency beacons. Others were quietly calculating escape routes. Everyone expected violence. Instead, Maya returned to her seat and picked up her datapad. "Professor Kethvar," she said to the still transparent instructor, "you were explaining cellular adaptation mechanisms. I'm particularly interested in how extreme environments affect neural development patterns." The crystalline professor slowly began regaining color, though his structure remained notably unstable. Yes, cellular adaptations, neural development." He struggled to resume normal academic function while processing what he'd just witnessed. Torgul remained standing, blade still in hand, staring at the human female who had just casually corrected his weapon technique and then returned to taking lecture notes as if nothing unusual had happened. Around the classroom, other students began whispering in dozens of languages, but all conveying the same basic sentiment. What kind of world produces people who react to armed threats by offering helpful technique suggestions? The security alert continued blinking on Professor Kethavar's control panel, but somehow calling for help seemed unnecessary now. The threat had been neutralized not through superior force or official intervention, but through something far more unsettling, complete indifference to danger that would terrify most sapient beings. Maya Chen continued taking notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions about xenobiology concepts, while Torgul slowly sheathed his blade and tried to understand what had just happened to his carefully maintained reputation as the Academy's most dangerous student. Outside the classroom, rumors began spreading through the Academy's communication networks at light speed. Something about the human exchange student, something about the way she'd handled Torgul's intimidation attempt. Something that made even the boldest students reconsider their assumptions about the quiet girl from the mysterious Class B world called Earth. None of them yet knew the truth. Earth wasn't Class B at all. The Galactic Council had quietly reclassified it as the first documented Class D world after initial survey reports described a planet where the dominant species had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, nuclear warfare, climate shifts, mass extinctions, and countless smaller disasters that would have wiped out any previously known civilization. Humans weren't just survivors. They were products of the most hostile environment the galaxy had ever discovered. They had evolved beyond the theoretical limits of what sapient life could endure, and Maya Chen was about to teach everyone exactly what that meant. Word of the classroom incident spread through the Academy faster than a quantum burst transmission. By the time evening meal began, every student from freshman Zelthonians to senior Chithari had heard some version of the story. Most accounts agreed on the basic facts. Torgul had drawn his blade, the human had somehow diffused the situation, and everyone present felt like they'd witnessed something significant without understanding exactly what. Maya ate alone, as usual, at a corner table in the vast dining hall. The Academy's food synthesizers produced meals appropriate for dozens of different species, crystalline nutrient solutions for the Zelthonians, protein-rich pastes for the Chithari, atmospheric supplements for the Nebulans. Maya's plate contained what the system classified as standard omnivore rations, a collection of substances that resembled food more than they actually were. She didn't seem to mind. According to Academy records, humans could digest an unusually wide range of organic compounds, including several substances other species considered mildly toxic. This was attributed to their Class B world adaptation, though the reality was far more extreme. Torgul approached her table slowly, his massive frame moving with the careful precision his people used when acknowledging worthy opponents. He carried his own meal, raw proteins that would have sent most species into medical shock, and paused beside Maya's table. "May I sit?" he asked formally. Maya looked up from her datapad, where she'd been reviewing xenobiology notes. "Of course. Though I should mention that most students seem to prefer keeping their distance from me." The hegemon warrior settled into the reinforced chair across from her. Up close, Maya could see the ritual scars that decorated his scaled forearms, marks earned through combat trials that tested pain tolerance, strategic thinking, and battlefield survival skills. His people took such decorations seriously. "They fear you," Torgul observed, watching Maya's reaction carefully. "They fear you, and they don't understand why." Maya considered this while chewing synthesized protein that tasted vaguely like something that might once have lived on a farm. "Fear seems inefficient. I haven't threatened anyone." "You corrected my blade work," Torgul said quietly. "Do you understand what that means among my people?" Maya shook her head, genuinely curious. The Academy's cultural orientation programs covered basic interaction protocols, but specific warrior customs weren't typically included in standard curricula. "Weapon critique implies superior knowledge," Torgul explained. "Among hegemony forces, only veterans who have proven themselves in actual combat earn the right to correct another warrior's technique. Even then, such corrections usually result in formal challenges." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "I apologize if I violated cultural protocols. On my world, helpful suggestions are generally welcomed, especially in educational settings." Torgul's laugh sounded like grinding metal, but not unpleasantly so. "Your world. Yes, that's what puzzles everyone. You handle threats like someone with extensive combat experience, yet Academy records list you as a civilian student from a peaceful Class B agricultural world." Maya paused mid-chew, her brown eyes focusing on Torgul with sudden intensity. For just a moment, the hegemon warrior caught a glimpse of something predatory, not hostile but alert, in a way that made his combat instincts whisper warnings. "What do your records say about Earth?" Maya asked carefully. "Standard Class B designation, moderate gravity, stable climate, limited predator presence, unified government, recent space capability development." Torgul recited the official description. "Population approximately 8 billion, mostly concentrated in agricultural and manufacturing centers, known for artistic expression and theoretical scientific advancement." Maya's smile contained no humor whatsoever. 8 billion. Yes, a fairly standard population for a unified Class B world. Is that significant? Maya set down her utensil and leaned back in her chair. Around them, the dining hall continued its normal activity. Hundreds of students from dozens of worlds sharing meals and conversation. None of them were paying obvious attention to Maya and Torgul's table, but several showed the subtle signs of covert observation. "Torgul," Maya said quietly, "what's the largest population your people have ever sustained on a single world?" The warrior considered. "During our peak expansion period, the hegemony homeworld supported nearly 2 billion individuals. That required extensive technological infrastructure and resource management across multiple star systems." Maya nodded. "And your people are warriors bred for efficiency and survival. How do you think a peaceful agricultural species manages to sustain 8 billion individuals on one planet?" Torgul's expression grew thoughtful. Hegemony education included extensive strategic analysis training, and something about Maya's question triggered his tactical reasoning processes. "Resource optimization would require—" He paused, running calculations. "That population density would strain most planetary ecosystems beyond sustainable limits unless—" Maya waited patiently while the implications processed through his warrior-trained mind. "Unless the species possessed exceptional resource management capabilities," Torgul concluded slowly, "or exceptional individual efficiency, or—" His voice trailed off as other possibilities occurred to him. Or, Maya suggested helpfully, unless they'd survived resource scarcity so severe that 8 billion represents a stable recovery population rather than a peak expansion. The dining hall's background noise seemed to fade as Torgul stared at the small human sitting across from him. His people's legends spoke of warrior cultures forged in unimaginable hardship, species so tested by conflict that survival itself became their dominant cultural trait. "Recovery population," he repeated. Maya returned to her meal as if they were discussing weather patterns. Human history includes several population bottlenecks: ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, disease pandemics, resource wars, climate shifts. The current 8 billion represents about as many individuals as Earth's ecosystem can comfortably support with existing technology. Torgul felt something he'd never experienced before, a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. How many survived the bottlenecks? That varied. The Toba supervolcanic eruption reduced human population to perhaps 10,000 breeding pairs. Various ice ages dropped numbers into the hundreds of thousands. The 20th century global conflicts eliminated roughly 100 million individuals. More recent climate adaptation eliminated several billion more. Maya spoke casually, as if discussing minor historical inconveniences rather than extinction-level catastrophes. Torgul tried to imagine his own species surviving even one such event. "Your people," he said carefully, "have experience with large-scale survival situations." Maya looked up from her data pad where she'd been reviewing molecular biology equations. "Every human has survival experience. It's not optional on Earth." "Even civilians? Even students?" Maya's smile returned, but this time Torgul recognized it for what it was: the expression of a predator who found something amusing about prey behavior. "Torgul, what do you think civilian means on a Class D world?" The hegemon warrior felt his worldview shifting. Class D worlds were theoretical. No sapient species could evolve under such conditions, let alone develop spacefaring technology. The environmental pressures would prevent civilization from advancing beyond primitive survival groupings. "Class D worlds are theoretical," he said aloud. "Yes," Maya agreed. "That's what everyone believes. It's much more comfortable than acknowledging that some species evolve beyond normal survival parameters." Across the dining hall, Professor Kethvar approached their table with obvious reluctance. His crystalline structure showed stress patterns that would have been invisible to most species, but Maya read them easily: fear, curiosity, and official obligation warring for dominance in his emotional spectrum. "Miss Chen," the professor said formally, "I received instructions from Academy administration. They would like to speak with you about this afternoon's classroom incident." Maya nodded politely. "Of course, Professor. Should I expect disciplinary action?" Kethvar's crystalline features flickered rapidly, confusion and concern. No, Miss Chen. I believe they want to discuss your academic placement and possibly update your cultural orientation materials." Maya stood, gathering her datapad and meal tray. "Torgul, thank you for the interesting conversation. I hope I answered your questions about theoretical survival adaptations." The hegemon warrior watched her walk away, noting movement patterns that he was only now beginning to recognize. Maya didn't walk like a civilian student from an agricultural world. She moved like someone constantly aware of potential threats, someone whose reflexes were calibrated for environments where hesitation meant death. Professor Kethvar remained at their table, his crystalline structure gradually stabilizing. "Torgul, may I ask what you two were discussing?" The warrior continued staring at Maya's retreating figure. "Professor, when Academy records classified Earth as Class B, who made that determination?" "The initial survey team, I believe. Standard xenological assessment protocols. Why do you ask?" Torgul turned his attention back to the professor. "The survey team. How many species were represented? Kethvar consulted his datapad. Standard composition: 2 Zelthonian xenologists, 1 Altarian cultural specialist, 1 Chithari technological assessor, and 1 Nebulan environmental analyst. All highly qualified professionals. None from warrior cultures, Torgal observed. Well, no, but that shouldn't. Why would warrior assessment be necessary for a peaceful Class B world? Torgal stood, his massive frame casting a shadow across the crystalline professor. Professor, I think the humans may have been very careful about what information they shared during first contact. As the hegemon warrior walked away, Professor Kethvar's structure began flickering again. Something about the conversation triggered alarms in his academic consciousness. The sense that important information was being overlooked or deliberately concealed. Elsewhere in the academy, Maya Chen walked through corridors designed to accommodate beings from dozens of different worlds. The architecture was peaceful, optimized for learning and cultural exchange. Everything was clean, safe, and carefully regulated to prevent conflict between species with different environmental needs. It was nothing like the world that had forged her people into what they'd become. And as she headed toward the administration offices to discuss her academic placement, Maya wondered how much longer the peaceful fiction could be maintained. Behind her, conversations rippled through the academy like shockwaves as students from across the galaxy began asking questions they'd never thought to ask before. Questions about Earth, about humans, about what kind of world produced people who faced armed warriors with helpful suggestions and casual indifference. The answers, Maya knew, were going to change everything. Dean Valthara's office occupied the Academy's highest tower, its transparent walls offering a panoramic view of the sprawling campus below. The elderly Altarian administrator had held her position for over 40 standard years, guiding the Academy through first contact protocols with 17 different species. Her blue-tinted skin bore the silver markings of advanced age and wisdom, and her large eyes held the patient intelligence that made her species natural diplomats. Maya entered the office to find she wasn't the only one summoned. Dean Valthara sat behind a curved desk designed to accommodate her species' unique physiology, while 3 other figures occupied the room's visitor area. Maya recognized Ambassador Theknor of the Hegemony, Torgal's people, and Dr. Senth-Eva, the Academy's chief xenobiologist. The third figure was human. Commander Sarah Mitchell wore the dress uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, though Maya noted the woman's posture and movement patterns suggested military rather than civilian background. Her gray hair was regulation short, and her brown eyes held the same alert assessment Maya had learned to recognize in herself and other humans. Miss Chen, Dean Valthara said formally, please take a seat. We have several matters to discuss. Maya settled into the provided chair, noting its position relative to the room's exits and potential cover positions. Habit so ingrained, she performed the assessment unconsciously. Dean Valthara, I hope this isn't about the classroom incident. Torgal and I worked out any misunderstanding. Ambassador Theknor shifted forward, his massive frame making the reinforced furniture creak ominously. Miss Chen, my nephew returned to Hegemony quarters with very specific questions about human survival capabilities. His inquiry prompted me to review Earth's official Academy classification. Maya glanced at Commander Mitchell, who remained silent but watchful. Clearly, this meeting involved information above Maya's security clearance. I see, Maya said neutrally. Dr. Senth-Eva activated a holographic display showing Earth's survey data. According to initial first contact assessments, Earth qualifies as a stable Class B world with moderate environmental challenges. However, recent analysis of human behavioral patterns suggests these classifications may be incomplete. The hologram shifted, displaying comparison data between human students and their counterparts from other worlds. Physical resilience metrics, stress response patterns, threat assessment capabilities, and learning adaptation rates all showed statistical anomalies. Human students consistently outperform established baselines for Class B species, Dr. Senthiva continued. Your people demonstrate survival characteristics more consistent with Class C world inhabitants, yet Earth's environmental data doesn't support such classification. Dean Valthara folded her long-fingered hands. Miss Chen, we would appreciate clarification regarding these discrepancies. Maya looked again at Commander Mitchell, who finally spoke. Maya, the Academy has legitimate scientific curiosity about human capabilities. Recent incidents have raised questions that diplomatic protocols require us to address directly. What kind of incidents? Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew. Ambassador Theknor answered. 3 separate occasions where human students responded to potential conflicts with tactical assessments that impressed our warriors. 2 instances of humans demonstrating survival knowledge exceeding Academy curriculum requirements. Multiple reports of humans casually discussing environmental conditions that would challenge even our most experienced soldiers. Dr. Senthiva added, Yesterday we discovered that human students have been unconsciously treating Academy emergency protocols as basic safety measures rather than crisis procedures. Your people's definition of dangerous situation appears significantly different from galactic standards. Maya nodded slowly. The discrepancies were inevitable once humans began interacting with species from genuinely safe worlds. Earth's definition of normal exceeded most planets' worst-case scenarios. Dean Valthara, Maya said carefully, what exactly are you asking? The Altarian administrator activated her personal datapad. Miss Chen, I'm requesting permission to access classified sections of Earth's first contact documentation, specifically environmental assessment data that may have been abbreviated for General Academy consumption. Commander Mitchell stood, her movement drawing everyone's attention. Dean Valthara, that information is restricted under Galactic Council Protocol 7. Species classification data can only be revised through formal xenological review process. Which is exactly what I'm initiating, Dean Valthara replied firmly. The Academy has a responsibility to ensure accurate educational programs for all students. If human capabilities exceed our current understanding, we need comprehensive data to provide appropriate academic challenges. Maya realized the conversation had moved beyond her individual situation. The Academy was questioning Earth's official classification, which meant eventually questioning the comfortable fiction that had allowed humans to integrate peacefully into galactic civilization. Commander Mitchell, Maya said quietly, may I ask a hypothetical question? The older woman nodded, though her expression suggested she knew where this was heading. If Earth's actual classification differed significantly from Academy records, what would happen to human students already enrolled in the program? The room fell silent. Ambassador Theknor's predatory features sharpened with interest. Dr. Senthiva's reptilian crest elevated, a sign of heightened attention among her species. Dean Valthara's silver markings darkened with concern. Commander Mitchell sat back down slowly. Maya, that's a very good question. Dr. Senthiva consulted her datapad. Current Academy protocols don't address classification errors of significant magnitude. If a species were discovered to exceed established safety parameters, they would be evaluated for transfer to specialized institutions, Dean Valthara finished. Facilities equipped to handle more dangerous student populations. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. More dangerous institutions, like military academies. Among other possibilities, Ambassador Theknor confirmed. His expression suggested the hegemony would welcome such a development. Warrior cultures always sought stronger allies. Commander Mitchell activated her own datapad and began inputting authorization codes. Dean Valthara, I'm going to share restricted information under emergency diplomatic protocols. Maya, What I'm about to tell you is classified, but circumstances require disclosure. The holographic display shifted, showing new data streams that made everyone in the room go very still. Earth's true environmental assessment painted a picture that redefined the concept of hostile worlds. Earth experiences regular mass extinction events, Commander Mitchell began. Approximately every 65 million years, the planet undergoes catastrophic environmental changes that eliminate most existing species. Humans evolved during a particularly active period. The display showed atmospheric composition data, radiation levels, seismic activity patterns, weather system volatility, and predator ecosystem complexity. Every metric pushed well beyond Class C parameters. "The ice ages your people survived," Dr. Senthiva whispered, reading the data streams, "lasted for millions of years. Your species developed civilization during an interglacial period while still carrying genetic adaptations for extreme survival." Ambassador Theknor leaned forward, studying the predator ecosystem analysis. "These hunting pressure metrics, your people evolved alongside creatures that would challenge our best warriors. And this," Commander Mitchell highlighted a section of atmospheric data, "is Earth's current stable condition. The environmental challenges human students consider normal represent the calmest period in the planet's recent geological history." Dean Valthara's silver markings had gone completely pale. "Commander Mitchell, this data indicates Earth qualifies as the first documented Class D world capable of supporting advanced civilization." Maya watched the adults process information she'd known her entire life. Every human child learned about extinction events, ice ages, natural disasters, and evolutionary pressure as basic educational material. They were simply facts about home. "The question," Commander Mitchell continued, "is what the Academy intends to do with this information." Dr. Senthiva was frantically running calculations on her datapad. A Class D world species. The theoretical implications alone would revolutionize our understanding of possible evolutionary outcomes. Ambassador Theknor stood, his massive frame radiating excitement rather than threat. "The hegemony formally requests immediate diplomatic discussions with human military representatives. A species forged by Class D conditions would make invaluable allies." Dean Valthara raised one long-fingered hand, calling for order. "Let's address immediate concerns before considering long-term implications. Maya, how do you feel about continuing your studies here, knowing this classification issue exists?" Maya considered the question while watching 3 different species try to process the reality of humanity's background. Their expressions ranged from scientific fascination to strategic interest to simple bewilderment. "Dean Valthara," Maya said finally, "I've enjoyed learning about other species and their achievements. The Academy provides an excellent educational environment. However, I should probably mention that I'm not actually one of the more impressive human students." The silence that followed lasted exactly 7 seconds. "What do you mean?" Dr. Senthiva asked in a very small voice. Maya's smile was gentle and completely terrifying. "I mean, the humans selected for the Academy exchange program were chosen specifically for our ability to interact peacefully with other species. We are the diplomatic specialists, trained in cultural sensitivity and conflict avoidance." Commander Mitchell closed her eyes. "Maya. The Academy hasn't met our military specialists, or our survival instructors, or our emergency response teams, or our exploration scouts, or—" Maya paused, noting the increasingly alarmed expressions around the room. "Well, anyone selected for capability rather than peaceful temperament." Ambassador Theknor's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "What kind of individuals would those be?" Maya stood, gathering her datapad with the same casual competence she'd shown throughout her academy enrollment. The kind of people who consider yesterday's classroom situation a minor social interaction rather than a potentially lethal encounter. She moved toward the office door, then paused and looked back at the assembled representatives. Dean Valthara, I'd be happy to continue my studies here under any classification system you choose. Earth sent us here to learn about galactic civilization and share knowledge about our own culture. That mission doesn't change regardless of bureaucratic categories. Dean Valthara managed to speak through her shock. And the other human students, will they share your flexible attitude toward classification changes? Maya's final smile was warm, genuine, and somehow more unsettling than anything else she'd demonstrated. Oh, yes, she said cheerfully. We're all very adaptable. It's what we do best. After Maya left, the 4 remaining occupants of Dean Valthara's office sat in stunned silence, contemplating the implications of a species so naturally dangerous that their diplomats doubled as casual threat neutralization specialists. Outside the Academy's walls, rumors continued spreading through the galactic communication networks. Stories about humans, about Earth, about the quiet girl who'd corrected a hegemon warrior's blade technique and treated potential violence as an opportunity for helpful instruction. Maya Chen walked back toward her dormitory, noting the increased security presence and the nervous glances from other students. Change was coming to the Academy whether anyone wanted it or not. But change was what humans did best. They'd survived ice ages and asteroid impacts and countless other disasters by adapting to whatever challenges arose, even the challenge of being too dangerous for the institutions designed to keep the galaxy safe. The lesson was over, but Maya suspected the real education was just beginning.